also just wanted to give you a chance to, in your own words, tell us why the department had asked for this new language.
Sure thing. Yes. Jill Remick, Director of Property Evaluation and Review at the Tax Department. I was not able to listen in, but other folks at the Tax Department did, so I got a little flavor. But yeah, so these are a few miscellaneous tax bill items that we're seeking. None of them are particularly massive in impact or scale, hence the miscellaneous tax bill. The land use change tax piece is sort of a two-part thing. You may recall we sort of given up the attempt at trying to figure out a different way to do land use change tax. But what does happen currently, which is still very much a problem, is when there is a portion of a parcel being developed, that requires, per statute, a standalone valuation to be done by the local lister assessor. And there are enough times that it's come to our attention we are not able to get that back within 30 days, which is the statutory deadline. So we sort of have a process where we send out reminder emails, we send out a second reminder email, we make phone calls, all because the land use change tax cannot be calculated until we get that valuation, because the land use change tax is 10% of that valuation. So what we're asking for is, if after those attempts, and obviously it's not intentional, there's a lot of listers and assessor offices that are very part-time or are vacant, and land use change tax is not something that comes up as part of their regular processes. They may have years where they never have a current use parcel get changed. So in the instances where we're not able to get that information, we're just asking for there to be this possibility that we just set that value so that we can issue the land use change tax bill, because it's impacting like real estate transactions, removing land, removing the lien from the land, that can have an impact on what folks' plans are for that property. And in association with that ask, and again, we don't want to do this and we don't want to have to do this, but we have several every year where we just sort of continue to ask, and it really impedes the process for the taxpayer. We're not looking for on day 31, if we don't hear from the lister, that's it, we're going to go out and value the property. But this is like, if after multiple attempts we genuinely can't reach somebody, we'd like to have some way to get a number to somebody so that they know what their liability is. So associated with that, another reason why this, there's another section of this related to the appeal process. So right now, because that valuation is meant to be done at the local level, that valuation appeal is appealable to the local listing or assessing office. And right now that window of appeal is only 14 days, which we're finding across the tax department, 14-day window for mail in and of itself is becoming really challenging. So what happens is an individual might get their valuation from their municipality of what their land use change tax will be based on. They'd like to appeal it. They submit appeal to the tax department. By the time it gets to us right now, it's past that 14-day window, and they can't appeal the correct way. So we actually have to docket the appeal and then deny their appeal. So we were asking if that could be extended to 30 days so that when current use gets these and they've come to the wrong place, that we can still give that taxpayer an opportunity to appeal through the appropriate channels. And so then the other piece is the land use change tax that's collected. The municipality retains 50% up to $2,000. And then the amount that's collected above and beyond that is sort of split in our system, 75% education fund and 25% general fund, I think. So in another way to try to sort of incentivize the timely evaluation of these, that we would say in the event that after these multiple attempts, when PBR had to do the evaluation ourselves, then we would not remit that $2,000 to the municipality. Again, we do not want to have to do this. This is just having a backup plan if that doesn't happen. I think there might have been a question about the $2,000 itself. If the municipality should be retaining more or anything like that. Right now, we collect whatever is collected, and we automatically, 50% up to $2,000. We do all that work in our system. Okay, I think that's the land use change tax portion. Yeah, and I've come before this committee before trying to figure out a different way to sort of automate it or find a way to use rates or a table. I've had FPR in here, right? We've tried to figure out a way to basically get these figures to taxpayers immediately without requiring this kind of human intervention. And it's just not as easy, as real estate is a fickle beast, and different parcels have very different values, and it requires someone who knows what they're looking at to make that valuation. So this is a pretty minor piece. It's not the end of the world, but it would provide us that opportunity to help the taxpayer get the answer after we've tried multiple attempts to get them the answer.
Greg,
So you said, so if you fail to get an answer from the assessor, then you'll make a decision on
Right.
how we go instead.
No, because we have updated valuation and enrollment information on each parcel and the portion of the parcel. I am guessing what we would do is our district advisors, who are our sort of local municipal assessment support folks who are, they're professional assessors and they do the equalization study, that the district advisor for that town would look at together with me the file and what we have on the parcel. If we could kind of estimate it or come up with a value, or use the town's land schedule and come up with a value, that I would have their help in doing that. I'm really hoping we don't have to do that much, but yeah, that it would be, again, it sort of removes it. The ideal, as far as like the accuracy evaluation, would still be to have the local assessing official do that.
Thank you. Jill. You have two groups of professionals working with a lot of these splits and parcels. You have lawyers and you have real estate agents. Are they of any help to help get this spurred along? I mean, there's not always a real estate agent involved, but there's usually probably always a lawyer.
Yeah, they're often who we hear from. They're trying to help make this closing happen, or they're trying to, and I suppose they wouldn't necessarily know, like, oh, I actually need to talk to the lister or assessor to get, that's what we tell them. We say, this is why we don't have a number for you. But yeah, they're usually the ones that are asking, or, yeah. But we can, maybe over time too, like we can sort of cut back on the delays and folks sort of understand where these things go. I will say, if this becomes something that I had a question, I think Ways and Means was like, well, what if you end up having to do this a lot? Then we would need to come in here and have a different conversation, because this is definitely not something we'd have the capacity to do. We don't want to do. So.
there's also the grazing,
Yes, grazing.
and I know we've only got about 3 minutes here. but
Okay.
That was, there were some questions about that. I think we understand what the intent is. But does the committee have any questions about that? And maybe just whether in fact this has been happening, whether somebody, where did this come from?
Yeah, this came from, I only know of one appeal. And again, these are not deal breaker. I mean, this is not something that I'm feeling really emphatic that must be corrected. But we had one appeal wherein an individual, and again, this is not for expanding eligibility. This is for demonstrating that gross income from crops. So if I'm having someone hay my property and I sell that hay and I make $2,000 or more, that currently is eligible. But if the cow comes and eats the grass right off the land, then that's not eligible. So that was kind of the scenario. I was like, but again, it has to meet that. This is only to meet this sort of demonstrating gross income of $2,000 or more.
Yeah, for the person with the cows, farmer.
Yeah, right. So very much the land is being grazed by cows. That's livestock. In any other sort of context, if it was 5 acres, that would not be an issue. But in order to demonstrate the $2,000 from the revenue of that agreement, I don't know how many acres or how many livestock you would need to meet $2,000 of income. But we had one scenario that was an appeal that felt kind of common sense wise. But it was written definitely by our attorneys, like really to keep this for the grazing head,
Is it intended to cover all the equine as well as?
Yeah, that would be livestock. So that would still fall under it. But again, it's about basically meeting that too. So if I had acreage and I was getting paid by a horse owner or a llama owner or anybody to graze on my property right now, I would not be able to benefit from current use. But if I'm getting $2,000 of pay for that, most of the time, these are kind of like agreements between neighbors or an in-kind agreement. But there was one example that came up.
There was a sentiment that honestly, having your land grazed, which I've had done by neighbors, and having it cut is a value, it's a cost saving for, otherwise you'd be brush hogging, burn a lot of diesel and costing you a lot of money. So
Right.
it helps the neighbor and it helps you, whether there's any dollars exchanged.
Well, it's an interesting,
My-
it's an interesting point and maybe something we ought to think about and talk about a little bit more, but just in terms of maybe providing some equity for whether it's this one case, maybe it'll never happen again, but I think it's not unreasonable.
And I do think this also, in addition to that, I think it was something the Agency of Agriculture would definitely want to come in on, because I think they were advocating for this as well.
Okay.
I think those were the only current use related miscellaneous tax charges.
Well, I have more, but not.
Okay.
Okay. You can go back and watch the tape and hear Representative Nelson's.
I heard about bees. Were you the bee?
No, that was John.
No?
He was structured.
Okay.
Certainly.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all set.
Thank you very much.
See everybody tomorrow, 9:30.